My name is FRAGKESKOS. I'm a first-year PhD student and a research fellow at the Climate Atmospheric Center of Cyprus Institute. And today I will present to you our work on temperature and states in human health in Cyprus, the impact of heat and hot waves. A work that is been done in the framework of my PhD with my supervisor Theo Economou, Georgia Lazarou, and Christiana Nostou.
Just if you want to click on that mouse there first, yeah, and then graph.
Okay. So I will start with a brief introduction, and then I will introduce the purpose of our work. I will show the data and the methodology that was used and highlight some of our results regarding the climatology, extreme hot and cold days in Cyprus, and then we'll end up with the health impact analysis and the conclusions. So in recent years, we became way familiar with headlines like this from news, highlighting the impacts of extreme temperatures in human health. I am pretty sure that a lot of people here knows the relationship between these terms, but I will show it anyway. So we have first to understand how our body works in these conditions to understand how this relationship works. So the heat storage in our body is a result of the difference between the heat production and the heat loss. In order to maintain thermal balance, we need proper blood flow and sweat production. However, sometimes our body fails to regulate this thermal temperature balance. This can happen, of course, when extreme high temperatures prevail. So the most usual direct effects on our body is skin rashes, dehydration, muscle contractions, heat exhaustion, or heat stroke that can be fatal. Now, for extreme low temperatures, the most direct effects is hypothermia, but in this category on low temperatures is not the temperatures that can put human health in danger, is the conditions, more specifically the cold and dry conditions that can help the spread of a lot of serious viruses. So some of the risk factors that put human in danger is sex, race, age. According to the literature, children, infants, and the elderly people are among the most vulnerable population, as well as people with pre-existing chronic diseases and alcohol and drug users. Now, I am focusing in the area of Mediterranean, North Africa, and Middle East, since it's area which is most probably will be affected more of the climate change. And this is shown from these studies that have been done in this area. For example, Elevate 2012 and 16 showed that hot summer conditions will become more frequent by mid to late 21st century, increasing heat stress, worsening urban air quality, and reducing fresh water availability. Next, ZDs and DUMOS show that heat wave severity will increase in this region, with north seeing temperature rises of up to 10 degrees and south facing 2 or 3 additional months of hot days and tropical nights. Next, ZDs 2022 confirmed that the region has warmed significantly faster in comparison with other regions. And then NADA showed that in a report that extreme heat, water shortages, population displacement, and air pollution are among the most critical health risks in this region that requires virus reduction and mitigation strategies. In recent years, last year, Hajat were the first to estimate projection of heat-related mortality across the Middle East and North Africa region, and predicted potential rates of up to 123.4 deaths per 100,000 people, an increase in compared to now of 60%. So we see that the Mediterranean and Middle East regions are identified as climate change hotspots, while they are experiencing a notable increase in extreme events, and projections indicate at the same time that these conditions will be even more stressful in the future. So from this area, our geographic focus is on Cyprus, which is a small island located in the eastern Mediterranean. So the purpose of our work was to study the climatology of Cyprus, including some trends in extreme hot and cold days in recent years, to estimate the mortality and hospitalization risk related to temperature extremes, and to quantify the proportion of mortality and hospitalizations in Cyprus that are attributed to extreme events. To do that, we studied first the climatology by using gridded hourly basis temperature data from the period 1979 to 2019. The data were extracted from the RFI Blunt and data set. Then we defined the extremes by using definition of hot and cold days. For hot days, we consider a day where both maximum and minimum temperature were greater than the 1950 temperature threshold of each one of the warm months from May to October. While for cold days, so we define them as a day where both maximum and minimum temperature were lower than the 5th percentile temperature of each one of the colder months from November to April. Then, to study the health impacts, we use mortality data from the Health Monitoring Unit of the Ministry of Health and hospitalization data from the Cyprus Statistical Service that had data from 8 public and rural hospitals in Cyprus. Both data cover the period from 2004 to 2018, and we are focusing only on respiratory and circulatory diseases and causes of death, since they are more correlated with extreme temperatures. Then our health analysis was conducted by using the statistical framework of distributed lag nonlinear and generalized additive models, which gives us the flexibility to estimate metrics such as the relative risks, cumulative risks, and attributable fraction and numbers. Also, on our statistical models, we use both maximum and minimum temperatures separately, but in this presentation, I will mostly focus on the results of maximum temperature, since there were no significant differences. So starting with climatology, as it was expected, Cyprus showed a statistically significant increase in trend in all temperature variables over the last 40 years. And since our health data cover the period from 2004 to 2019, we divided our period into 2 periods, from 1979 to 1999 and from 2000 to 2019. Then from this monthly analysis of the temperature, we see that the subperiod from 2000 to 2019 demonstrate higher median values compared to the period 1979 to 1999. And from the same plot, we can see that Cyprus show a distinct seasonal pattern, with a warm period from May to October and a colder period from November to April that we are going to use later in our statistical models. Then we studied the spatial distribution of the hot and cold days, as we can see in these animated plots, where we are seeing the total number of hot and cold days in each grid point and each month for the warm and cold season. From this analysis, we saw that most hot days are located in the central western part of the island, with fewest in the central eastern, and most cold days are located in the coastal areas, with fewest in the interior of the island. We also studied the temporal trends of hot and cold days, with hot days showing increasing trend, while cold days and decreasing one. Then in this timeline, we can see the episodes of extreme hot and cold days, which lasted for at least 2 consecutive days, where we can see that for the warm period, we had a total of 60 episodes, with the maximum duration being 12 consecutive days on mid-August of 2010. While for the cold period, we had a total of 50 episodes, with the maximum duration being 7 consecutive days on February of 2005. Then we continue with our health impact analysis. These type of plots are relative risk plots, are 2-dimensional plots with the relative risk showing up with the blue and red colors. Red colors indicating higher risk compared to the overall mean mortality and hospitalizations. And with the gray area, we can see the gray lines, we can see the significance. Next, we have the cumulative risk plots, which is a more concise way to present the results. It's basically the results by summarizing the relative risk by adding the effects across all the lags from the previous plots. So starting with mortality, we see that high temperatures increase mortality risk up to 16% above average for the first 5 lag days, with the maximum being on lag day 0. But at the same time, we can see that there is elevated mortality risk at very low temperatures for longer lasts. So then from a cumulative risk plots, we can see that the highest risk is at the lowest temperatures compared to the higher. From the same plot, we can see with the black vertical line the optimal temperatures, which showing the lowest mortality risk, where for the maximum temperature was 28.2 and for the minimum temperature to 20.2. So for hospitalizations, we had a quite different picture, since we are seeing lower overall risk compared to mortality as well as significancy. However, we can see that there is elevated hospitalization risk at lower temperatures compared to the higher. By seeing the cumulative risk plots, we see the same thing. Hospitalization risk is greater at lower temperatures compared to higher. But also, what it surprised us, it was the optimal temperatures, which, according to our model, it shows that the lowest hospitalization risk is when extreme high temperatures prevail. Then we studied the attributable fraction that measures the proportion of cases of deaths and hospitalizations that can be attributed to non-optimal temperatures. We used 4 different groups of non-optimal temperatures: hot days and non-hot days for the warm period, and cold days and non-cold days for the cold period. From the mortality on warm months, we can see that the deaths that are attributed to hot days reached 13%, while for the cold season, this percentage exceeded 50%, like reaching almost 58%. What is interesting is that the attributable fraction is nearly 2.5 times higher on hot days compared to non-hot days, and almost 2 times higher on cold days compared to non-cold days, which this tells that when on warm season, when comparing extreme to non-extreme temperature days, we have a higher rate of increase in mortality in comparison with the cold months. Now for hospitalizations, as it was expected, on hot days were lower to non-hot days, while the attributable hospitalizations to cold days reached 35%. Then in this table, I summarized the most intense and severe episodes of hot and cold days, along with the duration, the maximum and minimum temperature, and the attributable number of deaths and hospitalizations out of the total number of each episode. What we can see is that the maximum values of duration, temperatures, and numbers of deaths and hospitalization, as well as the minimum temperature for the cold period, vary in each episode, and this indicates that each episode has a distinct and significant impact in human health for people in Cyprus. So concluding, we saw that Cyprus show a statistically significant temperature increasing trend in all variables over the last 40 years. Especially, there were some patterns of the hot and cold days. These patterns were linked to temperature threshold range. However, we need further synoptic investigation for this. Temporal in hot days show an increasing trend during the warm season, while cold days in decreasing one. And by using the DLNMs and GAMs, it was shown that mortality and hospitalization risk increases more at the lower temperature compared to higher. This linked to the attributable measures that showed that cold-related mortality and hospitalizations exceeded those related to heat, although the rate of increase on warm season is higher compared to cold season. So what is next? Next, we want to incorporate the biometeorological index to provide a more comprehensive and more thermophysiologically meaningful way to interpret our results, instead of using just the minimum and maximum temperatures. And we did some study by using the Universal Thermoclimate Index, but those are primarily preliminary results. In this post, where I am showing the monthly and yearly frequency of UTCI classification, where we can see how the heat stress is behaving in Cyprus and in the inland of the island. And we also estimate the cumulative risk plots for the maximum values of UTCI. For that, from the results, we can see that they are generally aligned with the main findings from the previous results, that indicating that cold stress poses a greater health risk to people in Cyprus compared to the heat stress. Next, we estimated the attributable fractions. And what is interesting is that when we see the attributable fractions and knowing the UTCI classifications, there is the no heat stress, but Instead of considering non-thermal stress in Cyprus the safest classification, we see that the attributable fraction on the moderate heat stress is the lowest compared to the other classification. And this indicates that people in Cyprus are more acclimatized to heat. Same thing with the hospitalizations, but as it was expected, we have an increase from strong heat stress to cold stress. However, the UTCI values was extracted from the ERA5 heat reanalysis dataset, and the limitation of this was that we had a poor spatial resolution. So the next goal is to try to calculate ourselves the UTCI in a finer resolution, and also despite that, as we saw that the region of Middle East, North Africa, and Mediterranean is in danger, as I can say, from the climate change, we had a significant knowledge gap regarding the future projection of mortality, hospitalizations, and morbidity. And this gap is primarily due to the limited availability of comprehensive data. So what are we trying to do? Next is to estimate mortality and hospitalization risks based on various climate scenario projections, initially for Cyprus, and then if we have the data, we expand this in the Mediterranean region, and we will focus mostly on climate change hotspots. So thank you for your attention, and also I would like to thank once again the Trump Foundation for awarding me with the Travel Award.